Okay, let's look at the bubble sort. Where is that? So in like computer science, there's a bunch of different types of sorting algorithms. There's bubble sort is one of them. There's merge sort. Let's Google it. Quick sort, yeah. I actually like doing this. This is kind of fun for me. And sorting algorithms visualized. This is kind of cool. Oh, great. I get that YouTube red. So these are all like the different sorting algorithms that are working in real time of how fast they actually sort. So we have selection sort, shell sort, merge sort, quick sort, heap sort, bubble sort, which is the one we're doing. Look how inefficient that is compared to the other ones. Cocktail sort, that one actually looks interesting. And you can see kind of visually see how it actually sorts. But yeah, this is the one we're sorting, or we're going to be creating an algorithm for that problem. So if you ever want to look at different sorting algorithms and see how they work, how efficient they are, and also try to implement them the way they do, it's kind of pretty fun. So bubble sort. Let's look at bubble sort. It's this one. If you ever want like additional, if you don't understand something, like, oh, just, you guys can Google it. I mean, that's what we are, like essentially professional Googlers of how things work. So yeah. So merge sort, or I'm sorry, bubble sort will compare two elements, the first and the second, compare them. If this element is greater than the element on the left, it stays. If not, they'll swap and then it'll move on. So like 8 and 5, they'll compare each other. 5 is less than 8, then they'll swap. You just keep going down the line until you have a sorted list. So let's just jump into implementing it. Let's do some pseudocode. So what's the first thing? We already have create a method that takes in a list.
A list of numbers.
Yep, a list of numbers. What's next? Let's edge case. We can always just like test if it's an array or has a length. All right. Otherwise, what can we do? So my intuition, I need a for loop.
Yes. Iterator loop.
Yeah. So create a for loop and iterate, starting at index 0 and iterate through the list. Now,
since you're wanting to potentially do swaps, I can consider it just to the one before the last one, because you never want to compare the last array of your index to something else. So you start at 0 and go to
list minus, yeah. Let's do it. I'm gonna actually do this. I'm gonna do this in Python. Sorry. I'm just going to implement the way I did it, because I actually solved it differently in JavaScript versus Python, but they're essentially the same. So in Python, instead of doing a for loop, I still did a loop, but I did a I'm going to create a while loop. Starting at 0, or while, what did I do? So I initially created a counter because I wanted to use a while loop. So create a counter variable and start that at the length of the list with create a while loop that while counter is greater than 0, it's just going to continue to do that loop. And within here, I did a for loop, create a for loop. Create a for loop that iterates through the length of the array, as Ethan said, -1. And then I have a first element, and then I have I need to grab the first element and the second element. So I'm doing an if statement. If the first element at index, I'm just going to grab the first 2 elements, and then I want to compare them. This is why pseudocoding is so important. Instead of just jumping it right into code, you might back out and like realize you might do something different. So I just want to grab onto the first and second element. So first element, so create a variable of the first element I want to compare. And then I want to also create a variable of the second element I want to compare. And here's where I want to be able to swap the elements. So here's my if statement. If first element is greater than second element, don't know what I want to do. I want to swap. So you'll see as we start coding, I might implement a different method just for swap because I want to break out those things. But so I want to swap those. But what is swap? So
you can do it by creating another variable, just like a holder variable.
Like a temporary variable?
A is equal to temp, B is equal, or
B
equals A, and then equals A.
So create
A equals temp.
A equals temp, B equals A, then B equals temp.
Yeah, create a temporary.
A equals temp. Or temp equals A.
Temp
A equals B. B equals temp.
Create a temporary variable of index the second, the one that's the lower one, right?
Whichever way you want to do
Yeah,
it.
you could do it. Because you just kind of like.
I'm gonna do the greater one. Greater value. And then I want to essentially swap them in place. So I'm going to take the array assign array at index, I'll just say like the first index. At the, it should be the first, I don't want to say first index because it might not necessarily always be the first index. Yeah, it's true. First index. Right, first to, what is it? The temporary value. And then essentially do this again. Second index to the index of the first. No, I gotta swap that order, right? Yeah, because I'd essentially just be creating two the same values at the same index. And I just keep iterating through that for loop and adding. And I got after that's done, I need to decrement my counter. After for do counter variable. Then after the while loop is completely done, I could just return the new array. So I'm just gonna that's like the first. Yeah, I can just like keep indenting, but as we go through, they'll have all the indentations there. So def bubble sort takes in a list, or takes in an array. If I'm just going to do that quick test it, if not array, return array. It's just a quick edge case. And while counter, this is create a counter variable with the value of length of the list at 8. So counter equals length of array. Oh, I have to add in swaps in there. Cool. So for sign, then I can just increase the swap. Increment swap variable. So we already have the swaps right up here. I guess we gotta keep track of them. It's not necessarily that important, but we'll counter is greater than 0. Then I'm gonna create my first for loop. So for I in range, and do the length of the array -1. And now I'm going to create the first element variable. So create a variable of the first element, which would be array index I. Now what would be my second element? So I got to create another variable to store my second element. I plus 1.
You just have to write it array.
Thank you. Now I'm comparing, I'm doing this if for online, for my pseudocode, if first element was greater than the second, I want to swap. And then essentially this is how I'm going to be able to swap them. If first element is greater than second element, I could create a temp equals
0.
array
Oh, yeah, that's right.
at, let's do the second index. And then I'm gonna, this is where I'm actually gonna swap them. So I'm gonna take the array
Array
and index the second,
Oh, yes.
was it I plus 1? It's going to equal, so we're actually manipulating the array now. Equals array
I
at,
actually call it first, just say equals first element.
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah,
You can say array bracket I plus 1 equals first element.
oh yes. First element, thank you. And then array at I equals, yep, temp. And then I also just want to do swaps. Plus equals 1, because we have the swaps variable, so we got to keep track of the swaps. Essentially, it's going to keep doing this for loop all the way to the end. Oh, and then we got to decrement our counter once it breaks out of that for loop. Because it's got to keep doing, essentially it's got to do it all over again until the counter is 1. At that point, it should have looped through the array that many times and done a substantial amount of swaps. And then just return array. Print the array. Let's just print some stuff. Throw some print statements in here. What I personally did, I actually broke the swap out into its own func method. So let's just break this out. Well, no, let's not do that right now. Let's just see if this works. So let's call bubble sort. We got this list up here, the sequence. Cool. So I'm going to clear this. I'm going to run this bubble sort. Hopefully, if our logic is sound, we'll get it right. Oh, it's.
So just say result equals bubble sort sequence.
Oh, yep. Yeah, so I'm actually calling the function here to get this array. So let's run this. Oh no, line 41, 31, swaps. Ah, do you know why that is?
What is swaps?
Swaps is up here.
I've done this before.
Look what it says. Let's look at the error. Line 32, swaps, unbound local or local variable swaps reference before assignment. So look right here. It's calling this. Let's see, before assignment. So I think this is because all the functions, could be wrong. Actually, I'm not going to just assume something for it. I want to give you the wrong answer. But,
If you define it inside the function.
I could define inside the function, but then how do I return it? How do I keep track of it if I want to print it here?
You just put it before
That's not going to work. See what happens. It says before assignment, same thing.
You change the case of it.
Let's just Google what this. I think I know what it is.
Okay.
But Stack Overflow. Could fix it by passing parameter rather than reliance. So it has to do with the global variables. But whatever, it's not that important. Let's just get rid of the swaps. And just see if our algorithm actually works. Uh-oh. That didn't work. Had something to do with here.
Yeah.
Element array second. Temp. Would it be array? Would it just be the element? There we go. Cool. So that's bubble sort. I personally created a swap method. And so all this stuff was just called the swap with the array. And then the index, what was it? I and I plus 1. Oh. So all this is essentially just doing the same thing that it did down there, but it had, yeah. And then in JavaScript, I can't really do that here. It's kind of same thing. I just did 2 for loops instead of a while loop. What questions do you have? I mean, it takes a while. It takes a long time. Like, yeah. I mean, all this stuff has already been solved, so I'm kind of just referencing stuff. All right. If no more questions, let's take. You want to jump right into the lecture? Or you want to take a 5-minute break?
Let's get some fruity water questions.
All right, we're going to come back at 9:25, and then we're going to jump into the lecture today.